The weekends are typically when I will do any sort of coaching or any kind of writing mentoring. I have kind of a small pool of local people that I do this with, and typically it's regulated to the weekends, usually on Sundays. Um, and so today I was working with one of my regular people, and their mother actually pays for these sessions, not them. They're a young, really young individual. They're in their early 20s, live at home. Um, the individual's been writing for a couple years, but is pretty well established, like in, like, I guess, like the beginner stages of writing. Um, and the gentleman is someone who has really good ideas, like a really, really, really big imagination. Loves to tell stories, but they tend to hate the process of actually writing. Um, they basically have a condition. I won't go into it, but basically they have a condition basically that basically makes sitting down at the keyboard and writing very difficult. And so during a session, their mother actually came on over the Zoom call and had asked and said, "What do I think about ghostwriting? Specifically, should their son hire a ghostwriter to basically pen out these ideas that they have rather than having the son learn to write these stories themselves?" And I went over a kind of a diplomatic sort of answer of, ghostwriters are pretty expensive. Um, and if you get enjoyment in writing, you shouldn't hire a ghostwriter, right? Because that the enjoyment should be in the writing part of it, even if there are parts of it that you find frustrating. Um, you should at least enjoy the process of writing at certain points. And if you hire a ghostwriter, you're kind of depriving yourself of that, right? So the gentleman I was coaching agreed. They enjoy the process of writing. And they want to continue to build their skill. Um, Now, what I didn't say was something that's maybe it's a bit harsher. They don't, as far as I'm aware, they don't listen to this, so it should be relatively safe to say. But the problem with the person who has a lot of ideas but doesn't have the skill to generate them is that you don't really have anything. Ideas to a writer are pretty fleeting. They're not worth much of anything, right? Um, the most skilled writer in the world could take a terrible idea and still make a decent or even great book out of it. And conversely, a terrible writer could be given the best $1 million, awesome idea and still write a terrible book. The writing is where the money is. The writing is where the skill is. Ideas don't count for much. We've all had ideas for books that probably could be $1 million sellers, right? We all have. I guarantee you, at some point in our lives, we've had an idea for a book that we at the time thought was amazing. And most likely it is. Most likely that idea really was probably pretty cool. If you had committed, years to writing it and refining it and getting the story done, you might have had potentially a winner on your hands. We all get those. I don't think there's many writers that are short for ideas in a general sense. Um, I could be wrong, but I think most writers, when they get writer's block in these other periods, I think it's more of not knowing where to go with a story, an initial concept that just does not play out the way we thought it was, or we can't figure a way to finish it, what have you. I think the idea that we don't have any idea for a story at all, I think that's pretty rare. I can. There have been times when I have sort of been in want of a story to write, but it's doesn't happen a whole lot. Most of these stories that I come up with that I pen, I've had the idea already kicking around in my head for months or years before I ever start writing it. So I'm never really short on ideas, and I don't think many writers are. Um, the idea, though, regardless, is unimportant. It does not matter. What matters is how skillfully you can bring this concept into existence, how well you can actually bring it forth. Um, Anyone I think who's ever had someone say something along the lines of, "Oh, I had this really good idea for a story. Hey, I should tell you it, and you should write it, and then we'll like split the money, or whatever." Right? Like, it's a very childish sort of thing, but I feel like all writers have heard something very similar to that before, right? Like, oh, I had this awesome idea. You write it. We'll go in together on this. It's If you've ever been offered that, or if someone's ever said that to you, basically, in your head you're already eye rolling because yeah, I do all the hard work. You do the easy stuff, right? It's the idea does not matter. The idea is not where the money is. The money is in the telling of the tale and being able to skillfully create prose that pulls your reader in. It's not to say that every story needs to have fantastic prose. Plenty of stories have awesome plots in weak prose, and still people buy these books because the plots are engaging enough to pull people forward. The characters are still crafted in a way that you want to root for them. But it's all within the writing. It's never within the idea. Um, and so, if you're someone that maybe is early in your process, that you are coming to this very early on, it's important to recognize that everyone has these really imaginative ideas. Everyone has a really good imagination, even if they don't, right? But like it's best to assume that everyone does. That everyone has really good imagination. That your stories are only going to be better if you can write them better than other people. If you can make them work. If you can take the idea and actually turn it into something, as well as you can see it in your mind. That is where all of the skill in writing lies. It's never really in the idea or the concept itself. Um, there are a few concepts that work. There are. I think back to um, like Jurassic Park, for example, right? Yeah, a zoo with dinosaurs. Yeah, I'm gonna watch that movie, right? Admittedly, I've never read Crichton's or Crichton. I can't pronounce that name. I've never read that book. I've only seen the movie, but yeah, like you've hooked me on the premise alone, right? Like yes, that plot actually does that story concept, that idea does pull me in just because of the concept of it. Yes, there are some books where the concept will pull you in. It can carry a lot. It can do a lot of weight, but ultimately, it's still going to be the story that's going to pull you along. That's going to make you. That's going to bring your readers in and going to make them engaging. And so, if you're someone who has the idea and doesn't have the skill, understand you need the skill. The idea doesn't matter. And for those that have the skill and don't have the idea, it usually comes to you. It usually comes to you. Ideas are very cheap, but skill is very expensive.